Dear Thomas, it's been 5 years since we heard your goofy laugh, 5 years since we made fun of your gap, 5 years since we have made fun of Mom together, 5 years since we jammed out in the car, 5 years since you yelled at me to stop singing, and 5 years since I have had a sibling. So often, people talk about the memories of you from your adolescent years, probably because that is what is easiest to remember since it's when you passed.
Thomas and I were friends for probably 5 or 6 years. We met each other in 8th grade and didn't like each other at first. We actually hated each other and figured out we had a lot in common, did a lot of things together. Started hanging out, started becoming good friends probably the summer going into 8th grade, or going into 9th grade, I should say. I'd say Thomas and I were best friends, kind of like brothers, I'd say. His family would agree with that statement. Did a lot of things together through the Sea Cadets, through football, baseball, and just all around we were hanging out together all the time. We had talked about when he was in high school joining the Army together and doing a buddy system so we could be together throughout the whole thing. Everything that we planned to have an additional person there with us, and it was always each other.
Hi, my name is Mason, and I was a childhood friend of Thomas. He was the first friend that I had when I came to Maryland. And, you know, his relationship with me, I remember the first day he came up to me and he asked me what my favorite football team was. And I was like, you know, I really don't watch football. And he goes, you know what? He's a Ravens fan. He's one of us. Yay! And he just, you know, he got all excited and he just made me feel welcomed on my first day.
Me and Thomas went to school together basically our entire lives. We met in pre-K. We went to school together all the way up until about junior year when he passed. We were basically inseparable all throughout elementary school, but we grew apart just because we had different interests and we started making other friends, but I knew I could always talk to him in school if I needed to, and it was like nothing ever changed.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I was Thomas's daycare provider / babysitter. I consider my relationship with Thomas and his family to be a very close one. I loved everything about him. He was funny, he was smart, he was silly, he was kind, caring. He was very quick. His brain moved so fast because of how smart he was. And I can see that in my own children now. And so it's funny to look back and think on him like that. But whenever he did amazing things, I would cheer him on. And when he had his moments and he struggled, I would console him and I would sit with him and we would work through it. And some days it was harder than others. He was, you know, like any of us, it could be a bit of a hard head, but that's what made him who he was. He was random too. It was the best thing about him. He was so random.
Hi, my name is Mason. Thomas was one of my best friends. I met him at school and it was around 2016.
Hi, my name's Mia. I met Thomas in the 6th grade and I was best friends with him all up until he passed away in high school.
I met Thomas in 3rd grade. We played baseball together. That year we didn't really talk to each other too much. I remember him and Corey, they were like immediately best friends. I don't know if they knew each other beforehand, but then we were on the same baseball team again in 6th grade. We were on the A's this time. And that's when we started to actually talk, be friends and all, because we had classes in school at the same time as well. And then we played sports all through high school. I played baseball with him up till 8th grade. He kept playing in high school. I didn't play in high school. Then we played football together. He started, I think, our sophomore year. It was his first year playing football with us. But he went to the summer workouts, the workouts after school with us and all.
My name is Michelle. My son was friends with Thomas in elementary school, and I was a room mother, 4th and 5th grade, so I spent a lot of time with Thomas at school, and he came over a couple times, and when we moved here, it was the middle of 4th grade, and I was nervous that was middle of the school year and that my son was gonna not have friends, and Thomas was the very first person that Mason met, and they had matching sweatshirts. He welcomed him, and he was just so smiley and bubbly, and he was a good kid.
My name is Jake Waltzer. I went to Northeast High School with Thomas. We played football there together as well. And I met him through, he didn't play football my freshman year when I had moved down there, but our sophomore year he had joined up, and so we had had a lot of the same friends. Even though we didn't play football freshman year, he was friends with all those same guys. So we had ended up becoming friends our freshman year, and I was one of the people who helped convince him to join up with the football team that following sophomore year.
Hi, I'm Marcus. Grew up playing sports with Thomas. Played baseball at a young age with the Little League, and love to go fishing. Have great memories, him spend the night and stuff like that.
My name is Corinne, and I was Thomas's third grade teacher.
Hi, we're Tina and Thad. Our son was best friends with Thomas.
Hi, I'm Michael. I was one of Thomas's friends.
My name's Tony Mrazowski. I was Thomas's friend.
I'm Taylor Slogenhop. I teach health and PE as well as coach football and baseball here at the high school level in Cecil County. I had Thomas his freshman and sophomore year, not only in health and PE, but also in baseball and football as well.
I'm Jessie. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor in the state of Maryland, and I've been working in suicide prevention and postvention since 2015 or so, after the loss of a client. I became aware of Thomas soon after his death, in that I was asked to come speak or be present with coaches and other teammates to be able to support them as they navigated this loss and their experience.
I'd say Thomas was like one of the funniest guys I ever met in my life. He always, no matter how bad of a day I had, he always knew how to make me laugh and crack me up, and he was always very supportive of everything I did, even when I made dumb mistakes. He was there, he always had my back, even when I would mess up, and he'd help me figure out what to do and what not to do, and even through the hard times that I had throughout high school, he helped me through them.
He was smart. He always had straight A's. He was always in, I was in advanced classes all through middle school and high school. He was even above where I was at, and he was still had straight A's the whole time. And he'd come in, he'd be there twice a week, and he'd always have it calculated out exactly how many days he could miss before he would fail, and he'd go right up to that limit and still did better than everybody else in school. And he was super into politics. We had government together in freshman year high school, and I remember he loved that class because him and Austin, they were both obsessed with politics, and he was really athletic too. All the sports I know he played, he was top in all of them. Football, baseball, all of it. He was top in those, and he was caring about others. Because I remember my one friend brought up a story about him. We were playing Perryville our sophomore year of high school in football, and my friend got in a fight on the field, and so we lost all kinds of yards and everything, and the only thing Thomas cared about was make sure he was all right. He didn't care about losing the yardage or nothing. He cared about he cared about our friend, make sure he was all right there and everything.
Thomas was very patient, loyal, compassionate, kind, and respectful.
Thomas was always happy and smiling, and he always wanted to do fun things. He was always wanted to hang out and go places. When we were little, when we had a field trip, I think it was either 4th or 5th grade, we went to Washington, D.C. together, and we just explored all of D.C., running around together, and we ran to a couple places that we actually got yelled at for going there because, we wanted to go and explore and do everything. And it was just, he was always that, let's go do something. He wanted to be out and be happy and always doing stuff. And it was always good to remember him like that.
The things that I really remember about just being around Thomas was he always had just the biggest, brightest smile out of anybody. It didn't matter where you were, what you were doing. He was always smiling, he was always laughing. and there was a contagious laugh. You couldn't help but start laughing whenever he was around. He'd doing anything, saying anything, and you couldn't help but smile and just have a good time and enjoy it. He always brought the most positive energy to everything. That didn't matter what it was. If you were in class, you were at practice, you're in the weight room, didn't matter where. He would always just make it more enjoyable. It was never about him. It was always about making sure everyone else was happy, and that was something that I can really remember a lot. Was that he always cared so much about everyone around him, and he always put so much of that energy towards everyone else.
He was funny, joyful, caring, outgoing. Honestly, the best thing I remember was every time he walked into the room, he would just light it up with a smile and, the passion he brought with life.
Thomas was always bubbly and smiley, and I always enjoyed being around him when we were at school, and he was a good friend to my son, and I wish they got more time to spend together.
I remember Thomas being very outspoken and funny. He was always kind and nice to people, even if they weren't considered one of the popular kids.
Some of the words I would use to describe Thomas are dedicated, hardworking, self-determined, but probably mostly patriotic. Really stands out. He was very patriotic.
Thomas was a very funny and sarcastic person. One of my favorite memories in middle school when I first met him was he would always throw paper balls at me in the back of the classroom. He was also extremely smart. I was very lucky to have spent a lot of classes with him, and super competitive about his grades and always wanted to one-up me.
Thomas was always very charismatic. He always, was a person, he talked to anybody. He would, he had his own opinions. He's very smart. Just a person you wanted to be around, for sure. He always, made everyone feel included.
Growing up, he was very adventurous, very energetic, very goofy. He had amazing humor to him. He loved having fun. He loved just being himself. He always was himself. He always was fun to hang out with, fun to talk with, fun to play with. And growing up, I always kind of looked up to him because he was really mature growing up. I was a year older than him, and he kind of was an inspiration to me, because we were so close together. He was really goofy, really energetic, really committed to things that he really liked, and I looked up to him for that. In growing up, I always looked up to people. I always looked up to my friends. I always looked up to everybody I was around. Him being in my life at such a young age, he was one of the first friends I really looked up to, and he was really mature for his age. I mean, he was a goofball, but we played a lot of baseball together. He was super athletic. He was fun to hang out with. He was quiet. I loved hanging out with him. Anytime I got a chance to hang out with him, I enjoyed it. And one thing I wish was that I cherished the times we had a little bit more than I did at the time.
Thomas was funny. He was very charismatic, as young as he was. He was charming so much. He'd make you laugh. His smile was infectious. His laugh was infectious. He had a giggle that was really cool. And I just loved being around him for the fact that he made you feel good. And he always seemed like he was good. So he made you feel good from it. And
him and Michael would go on adventures and, jumping off of bridges and Port Deposit somewhere or something. I don't know. But, that's
Yeah,
what they would
you didn't
do.
know where they would end up, but you were just glad they came home safe, you know what I mean?
They did Sea Cadets together, and then my son goes, and a couple weeks later, they're off to boot camp.
Yeah, they went to high school for something, for football. The Ravens were there. So we took them, dropped them off. They were young, in 9th grade, maybe 10th at that time. And next thing you know, I get a text. It's the two of them with two of the Ravens cheerleaders posing, hand in hand, arm in arm, the whole bit. And but that's how they were. They just got along really well. They were cool together. They were fun together. Thomas was cool together. Like, I don't know, I just enjoyed it. The last time he was here, I remember they were jumping into the pool and doing backflips, and he wasn't doing so good, but he hung in there and just laughed, and they had such a good time. Just good guy all around, and we do miss a lot of things that he brought to the table, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
My name's Amy. I am Thomas's mom. Thomas was born September 29th, 2002. He was actually due the 21st, but in true Thomas fashion, he came 8 days late. It really kind of, when I think back about his labor, it really was kind of foreshadowing about who he was going to become, because he was stubborn and also laid back. So he decided to come 8 days late, but then his labor itself, I got an epidural, so needless to say, nice and chill delivery. And then from there, that just kind of was Thomas's personality. Pretty much throughout his life. When I was thinking, kind of back on different characteristics of him, he was funny, definitely quick-witted and sarcastic. People loved him or hated him. Most people loved him, but like Thomas was who he was. And so sometimes, not everybody, he wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but most people. He definitely had a heart for people, and he has been described as being an old soul. Like, he really just, he loved people and just wanted to, he was kind of a natural caretaker, and that's the role he took on with family, with friends, and really just wanted to be there for people. And then he also had that personality, like, he just lit up a room. Like, you knew when Thomas was there. And then I had a teacher once tell me that Thomas could debate. Like, he loved politics, he loved history. And if you were gonna debate Thomas, you needed to come prepared, because Thomas knew his stuff, he fact-checked, and if you were gonna debate him, you needed to be ready. And she said he actually debated so well and was so prepared that she could see him writing political speeches in the future. And then as he got older, he really became more secure in who he was, in terms of, like, he'd get manis and petties with us, he would do face masks with his sister, he would braid her hair. And for him, he went tanning for prom, which, whatever, like, it surprised me that him and his friend went tanning, but that's okay. And then, so those things for him, he's like, it doesn't make me less of a man in terms of society's view of what a man is. It's just like, he's gonna do these things. Thomas liked to look good, he liked to feel good, liked to smell good, and his hair always had to be on point. So yeah.
Thomas was very funny. And I think because he was so smart of a kid, straight A's, I think that added to his quick-wittedness. He was extremely funny, and he just very quick on the take with things that he said to people. He loved his family fiercely, especially his mother, but he was very much all about his family and his grandparents. He loved wrestling. That added to who he was, because that's all he talked about was wrestling. And because of that, I knew all about Kelly, because he was in love with her, and Rey Mysterio, and he could not wait to see them. He loved that. And one thing that I really, truly loved about him was his patriotism. Every bit about that child loved his country, and I never met a child as young as Thomas that loved his country so much.
There was a time that we were approached by somebody as we were going into Wendy's, and he wasn't asking for money, he was just asking for something to eat. So we invited him to get in line with us, and he asked Thomas, he's like, well, what are you gonna order? And it was probably the Baconator, that's usually what Thomas got. So the guy, he was like, all right, I'll get what you're getting. So we paid, we got our food, and we went and sat down. Well, then Thomas is like, can I go sit with him? Because the guy was sitting by himself. was a little hesitant at first, you know, but we were sitting close enough where I could keep an eye on him. So Thomas went over, asked the guy if he could sit with him, and then they sat, talked, and had lunch together. And again, that was just Thomas. Like, he really had a heart for people, and he saw people for people. He didn't see them for their circumstances. He just saw people for who they were.
I happen to remember our much younger years as well. I always tell people I feel like I can fight because I had plenty of practice wrestling with you. I remember countless hours at the ball fields watching you practice and play. I remember all of your little crushes, the WWE wrestler Kelly, one of our summer camp counselors, and dude, you were like 7 and she was 18. You never stood a chance. And a few others I won't mention, and you can thank me for that later. I remember when we would set up a haunted maze in the hallways, which was really just a fake spider, a black light, and some white curtains. I think about the times just between you, Mom, and I, and how we would joke about her scared smile or her alter ego, Helga, when we would get in trouble. And once we were a little older, we sat in my closet room eating fried chicken, laughing about anything and everything for hours. We would do face masks together or jam out in the car, and when we flew to Orlando, we had a whole row to ourselves. You let me stretch out and even put my legs on you. When we dressed up as Despicable Me characters for Spirit Week, thank you for that. We would be late to school just so you could blow dry your hair, and let's not forget when you would text me every night asking if you could park in my spot at school the next day, and when I would say no, you pretty much encouraged me to just not go to school.
So when we were in middle school, once a year we get to go to Dorney Park if we got good grades, and starting in 6th grade, me and Thomas stuck together like a magnet, and we would always go straight for the water park, and for the following 2 years we always got to enjoy that together, and I will never forget those days of just going to the water park with him and just enjoying our day. That was my favorite day of the entire year, each year, and I will forever remember that.
My favorite memory of Thomas would be the time he found out that he was going to go to WWE wrestling match, and he found out that he was going to see Rey Mysterio, and I think Kelly was there too. But when he found out about it, his excitement was extreme. There was no living with him. He was bouncing off the walls. It's all he talked about for days, and when the time finally came, you couldn't reason with him on anything. He was just beyond excited. And the days after, it lived with him forever. It was like a highlight for him.
Probably one of my favorite memories, though, is when he was downstairs playing video games with his friends. He would have his headphones on, so I don't think he was aware of how loud he was actually being. And to hear some of the stuff that him and his friends would, yell back and forth or whatever. So I remember I'm upstairs when I'm watching TV, doing something, whatever, and all of a sudden I hear, "Hang on, white chocolate, I'm on my way." And I am upstairs dying. I'm like, who is he talking to? I later found out which friend it was, and that particular friend, it makes it that much funnier. But just to hear him, having fun with his friends and laughing and, those moments, I would give anything to have him back and just hear him screaming, "Hang on, white chocolate, I'm on my way."
My favorite memory of Thomas I guess it would be multiple because it happened on multiple occasions, would definitely be at recess playing kickball and just being in gym and playing kickball and playing sports together, because it was always, he always had that competitive edge with him, and like either being against him or on the same team with him, either way, you always knew it was just, you're gonna have a lot of fun out there playing, and being that little, the only thing you cared about was playing with your friends and having fun together. And it was like, you didn't really care if you won or lost, but he'd kick a ball really far and everybody'd be like, whoa, that's awesome. Everybody'd get excited and be like, Thomas, you're awesome. You just hit a home run. So it was always fun playing sports and really playing kickball together at recess.
He came over one night. We just had fun playing video games, just kids. That morning we got up and we went fishing. We tried to catch some fish at the creek in Northeast. And then my dad was the all-star coach, so all three of us went to all-star practice early and got the field ready. Had a great all-star practice, and it was just amazing times getting to spend the entire day with him and really just have fun as kids.
Me and Thomas entered the elementary school talent show, and we had a blast. I was singing I Got a Feeling by Black Eyed Peas with him, and I didn't think I was going to have a blast. I don't think I was going to go out of the talent show being happy. I thought I'd be really scared. I mean, originally I was really scared. And it's funny because something I remember also about that was rehearsing for the talent show like a lot. We went over lyrics so many times, and Amy and my mom were going over the lyrics, making sure we had it down. And we went out there and we knew all the lyrics. It was more the part where when the lights came on and the curtain opened and we walked out there, and there's so many eyes on you, there's so many phones out, and you're just a little kid up there, kind of scared, who's first time ever seeing this before. And what happened was Thomas turned into this superstar. This kid was singing his heart out, dancing, jumping up and down. Originally, I wasn't doing that. I was standing there, I was scared, I was not doing anything. But when I saw him jumping around and dancing and singing, I started jumping around and singing with him. And it was just a beautiful memory because he lit up that night.
Oh man, we did a lot together. We would always go out like driving around. We would just find dumb things to do. Like we would, after football workouts, we would, be like, all right, what are we doing next? And it would be, like jumping off the bridge into the water, obviously. Just like, going to different parties in high school, meeting up and getting ready. And, he was able to drive before me, so he'd drive me there, and we would, figure out who's driving, where we stay in, like just, normal high school stuff that we would do. And we did a lot together. We were always together, it seemed like.
One of my favorite memories of Thomas is in third grade during our English language arts block. He was so far ahead of everyone else that I let him pick a topic for an independent study, and he picked the Civil War. And he created this amazing lap book, and he could like rattle off facts that would just blow your mind. So he was super impressive.
One of my favorite memories of Thomas was from pre-K, when he had convinced me that it was a good idea to pull a prank on our friend Colby and to pull his chair out from under him before he sat down. And we were sitting at one of those horseshoe-shaped tables, and Colby's chair was between me and Thomas. when Colby went to sat down, we pulled it out from under him and Colby fell. However, he thought that it was funny, so he laughed, but we still got in trouble. And I was never the kind of kid to get in trouble. I was too quiet, too shy, so I never got in trouble in school. And so when I came home, my mom was upset that I had gotten in trouble and was asking, who the heck is this Thomas kid? Why are you getting in trouble now? Because you're hanging out with him. And that was basically the start of our friendship.
So my son and Thomas were friends through half of 4th grade and 5th grade, and then Thomas moved, so they had kind of lost touch. And then they were going to School of Tech together. We went for orientation night, and we were just kind of looking around and seeing who was going to be in there, because that's when all the high schools come together. And I noticed him across the room, and we hadn't seen him since 5th grade, so I'm like, Mace, is that Thomas? And he was like, yeah. So we kind of chased him down the hallway to tell him to remind him who we were and all the stuff. And it would just like his smile again was so bright and cheery, and we were so excited that they were going to reconnect. And then that summer is when he took his life. So it was kind of heartbreaking, but it was nice to see him again and remember, that he remembered all of us, and his smile. I'll never forget his smile.
One of my favorite memories about Thomas was when he would come over here and go hunting with my dad and my brother, and we would stay awake until 4 a.m. and we'd have to be quiet because he was supposed to be asleep and getting up in an hour. And he would run in and we'd play games, talk, whatever, and he'd beg me over and over and over every time to go with them, and I would never go. And then he'd come home and wake me 4 hours later telling me all the geese that he got and how happy he was, and just the smile on his face was something I'll never forget.
My favorite memory was when we were on the A's in 6th grade. I was on base. I don't remember what, I was a second or third base. And he was up to bat and he hit the ball. I ran home and he stopped at third base, and everybody sitting there staring at him like, what are you doing? And the coach told me, it was like, it went out. It was a home run. He started cheering and everything. We all met him out at home plate, and we all ran the home plate, congratulating and everything. But it was just, I thought it was so funny. He didn't notice it went out. He stopped at third. He didn't want to get out until the coach told him, like, you got to home run. Go home. Don't stand there.
So my favorite memory of Thomas actually came in a baseball game his sophomore year. Very hard-fought game against a school from not our county, another county. Like I said, very hard-fought, back and forth. And there was a play in the game, a moment in the game, where everybody kind of got pretty fired up. I remember Thomas especially getting fired up, which to me, going back to his characteristics, just showed his passion and his enthusiasm. And I love seeing that as a coach. However, in the moment, we got to try to get our guys back focused on the game. So I remember going up to him and having a conversation with him off to the side. And again, his energy was high. My energy was high also, especially as a young coach. At times I didn't control my emotions perfectly. But we went back and forth a little bit. And at the end, he was able to get refocused. He went out and he played a really good rest of the game. After the game, I remember him coming up to me and apologizing, which he absolutely did not have to do. And I thought it was funny because I told him I appreciated his apology. And I also told him he didn't have to do it. But the biggest thing I remember telling him is that just how much it reminded me of me whenever I played in high school and college. And even as a young coach, right? Very energetic, very passionate, and that it's good to have that type of energy, good to have that type of passion. At the end of the day, all I was trying to do was just refocus him back. But I thought it spoke a lot about him that he was able to recognize that, and maybe he felt a little bad about it, I'm not sure, but he came up and apologized. And again, it just reminded me so much of me that really, whenever I think of Thomas, I think about that moment. He wasn't just a kid who gave a lot of energy and then didn't really care about anybody else. He gave a lot of energy, and then even for his coach, he was like, Coach, I'm sorry I reacted that way. And like I said, just to me, it told a lot about him and who he was as a person.
One of my favorite memories of Thomas was he was over one night, staying the night, and actually my younger son was down, and he always treated him just as well. He never shooed him away or anything, and he was telling him a story. He had just gotten back from Costa Rica, and saying something about monkeys, and I mean, he had my younger son laughing, rolling on the floor. And then next thing I know, they're rolling around, wrestling on the floor, and Michael's teasing Thomas, you know, don't beat up my brother, you know, one of these deals. And it was just so cute because he was picking up for his brother, but of course they weren't really fighting or anything like that. But it was just so cute the way they would wrestle together or play, or just the stories that he would tell.
The main thing that I think I remember from being with Thomas, hanging out with Thomas, talking with Thomas, was he was one of those first people who ever really had believed in me doing anything, really. You know, growing up, not many people had ever really believed that I would really amount to a whole lot. You know, get in trouble a lot. I did okay in school and all that, but no one ever really thought that I was gonna be anything at all. Never thought I'd go anywhere with sports, anything like that. But Thomas was the first person who had ever straight up said to me, you're gonna do great, you are great, and you can do all those things. He was the first person who ever said that my dreams were achievable, and that's something that has always stuck with me. He was the first person who said, like, you know, hey, you want to go, you'll be a powerlifting national champion, I think you can. Everyone else, they laugh at me, but that's something that has always really stuck with me, was that he believed in everybody. He always believed in the best of everybody, and that was, you know, something very, very unique about him, that it didn't matter who you were, didn't matter what was going on. If you were struggling, he'd always help you and always believe that you were always more to him than you thought of yourself. And that was just something that I've taken with me, and I think about a lot, is just that belief that he always had in everybody.
Another favorite moment of mine was high school prom. This more of an older Thomas, teenage Thomas, when he was I think going through a little bit more, and he was the best looking dude at that prom by far. He had this watch, he had the sunglasses, the dark tux, the red tie. He looked great, and it was a blessing to stand there next to him and just be there with him, you know, because that's one of his most, you know, famous pictures now, and I'm so blessed to have shared that picture with him and look really good next to him. I mean, he was looking great.
There was a time that he actually surprised me by sharing something that he had heard in church, which kind of surprised me a little bit, because, you know, you just sometimes wonder, are your kids actually listening? And so he was in the car with me one day, and I got a phone call, and that phone call I was gonna have to make, it required me to make kind of an immediate decision. So I told the person, I'm like, you know, let me have a few minutes and I'll call you back. And so Thomas looked at me, he's like, do you remember what they said in church the other day? They said, be still. And it just really hit me. And I think he kind of maybe saw the surprise on my face, because he's like, yes, I was listening. And what it was is, in that moment, that's what I needed to hear, was be still. And I am so thankful for that, because had I not listened, then things probably would have looked a lot different. And it wasn't so much that I was listening to Thomas, it was that he was listening, and then at that time shared what I needed to hear. And like, it never ceases to amaze me how God orchestrated things, and even more so since Thomas has passed away. Like, more and more I see things like, oh, okay, now I'm seeing that, now I'm seeing that.
I'd say my favorite memory with Thomas was one time we went to Dick's to go buy him football stuff. He was trying out football for the first time. And the Dick's that we went to had an indoor virtual golf range. And he decided it'd be funny to hit a couple balls at it. And I watched him swing on it about 8 times, and he missed every single time. And just no luck at all. He just was terrible at it.
That's number 6. Number 6 missed.
One of my favorite memories with him, we were hanging out one night and he had bought a taser, I'm not really sure why he bought a taser, but he said, if you let me tase you, you can tase me. And so he held me down and tased me. And then when I turned around and said, all right, your turn, he said, I'm not doing that. That's about it.
For you, I am grateful. I wouldn't have known all the most up-to-date political information. I wouldn't know how to make a pot of coffee that isn't a Keurig. I would not have created some of the friendships I have now or gained a sister in Kaylee. And yes, we still make fun of you even if you are not here. I have 2 boys, Ezra and David, that will never meet their uncle. You won't be here to teach them all the things they aren't supposed to do or say. You won't be here to teach them how to pick crabs. You won't be here to teach them how to play sports. You won't be here to wish them good luck on their first day of school. You won't be here to spoil them or tease them about girls. I do know that they would have loved you, and I will tell them all about you as they get older. I think of all the things you wanted for your future, and I think of how great of a dad you would have been, and I can't help but to think of how our relationship would have progressed as we got older.
Thomas impacted my life, you know. He, just from simple conversations, like the way he viewed the world and just like on, you know, politics, he was just so smart. So like I feel like I learned a lot from him on how I wanted to act as a person. I think he was a real role model. He was a little older than me, so I did look up to him, kind of, you know.
Thomas's impact that he had on me, like as I stated before, you know, he made me feel welcomed when I came to Maryland, and with that, it's always stuck with me that, you know, places that I feel welcome, that even though everybody else might make you feel like bad about yourself or feel down, that there'll always be that one person that may secretly be like, hey, I'm here for you no matter what, man, like I got you. And he always made me feel like, just from that one instance in 4th grade when he ran straight up to me and was like, what's up, man, how you doing? I'm Thomas. And he always made me feel like that somebody would always, I feel like, be looking out for me no matter where I went, and that's what really stuck with me.
So for the impact that he had on me, as a coach, he is who I want to see, right? He's who I want to have on my team. Guys like him, they're why you get up in the morning and we come in and do what we do. They, again, passionate, always working to be their best, really good teammates. They make our jobs easier, and they also, for me, motivate me to be as good as I can be and strive to be as good as I can be, so that way I can put those guys in a position to be successful. Again, he was the kid, I think, I feel lucky to have had the chance to not only know him, but coach him. And I think any coach that had him probably would say the same thing.
Thomas had a major impact in my life personally. I struggled with anxiety, and he was one of the first people I ever told. And I didn't really understand what was going on in my life. I just knew I couldn't go to school, and I wasn't normal in a sense. And he was always there to reassure me, make sure I was eating, getting out of the house the best that I could, and making sure that I wasn't alone.
So he always made me want to be better, seeing how he did in school and how he was in sports. Like I said, he always had straight A's, always in the top classes. He's always a starter in sports. And so it just, seeing how he was like that, it made me want to be better. I want to take and have straight A's. I want to do just as good as he was in sports. And like he would help people through it. It's not just seeing him do well made me want to do well. He would give people advice. He'd help you through whatever it was that you wanted to talk to him about. Like we would talk about the workouts, we would talk about the games, whatever. He'd always give his advice. He just made everybody want to be better. And he always never let anything be boring. So if you were down about something, he's making jokes or something. So it kept everything interesting. Didn't let nobody be sad. Everybody wanted to be smiling around him.
I'd say the impact Thomas had on me. Thomas taught me to be more caring and a lot more sympathetic than what I really was. I really didn't care for anyone or anything before him. He showed me that you need to at least give people a chance every now and again. He was a very caring and very family-oriented person. That was something that we both had in common, was family-oriented, but to give respect to other people, I wasn't big on that, and he showed me that a lot. He showed me to not be afraid of who the person I am, and just embrace who you are, make the best out of every moment you have, and just enjoy life in general.
Thomas had a huge impact on me. He was just such a resilient person. He went through a lot of things in life, and he always had a smile on his face. He would come to football games after long days or long weeks and be the happiest person there. He always made everybody laugh around him no matter what he was going through. So he will forever be that funny, caring guy in everyone's heart.
One of the reasons Thomas had such a big impact on me, even as a little kid, was he just stood out from others. He had this like intrinsic motivation at such a young age, and that always stood out. So when I would see him, even as a middle school or high school student, he would come up and hug me, and just always polite and kind, but really just who he was, even as a third grader, was impressive. So he always is just one of those kids I remember.
You know, every day in class, it was always one thing or another. In high school, we thought it was the worst thing ever, but Thomas always just seemed to, you know, bring it back down to earth and really put it into perspective, you know, what it was to have a bad day, and, you know, it's really not that bad, and, you know, we will get through it. And he absolutely showed me personally what a good, true friend was, and to really, you know, be there for me when I needed it.
I was a very shy kid most of my life, and having Thomas around made me more outspoken, and there wasn't a moment we weren't laughing or getting into trouble.
Thomas's impact on me as a person, I learned a lot about patience from him. I mentioned that he was a bit of a hardhead. I am too, and that's probably where we collided sometimes, but I think it was his passion that when he wanted something or something was important to him, he couldn't understand why other people didn't see the same thing, and sometimes it didn't work for him. And we'd have to negotiate. And because of those negotiations, I had to learn a lot of patience. But I took the time with him, and because I saw how, beyond all of that, he was an amazing kid. And I loved that about him. You know, kids, when they have passion at a young age, that shows that it's worth the extra time. So, and I think that now, learning that type of patience, it made me a better mother too, because I have to be patient with my kids, and I see similar things then. So I thank Thomas for that in my life.
Yeah, the biggest impact that he's had on me in my life since then has been really that I don't want to make anyone feel as alone as Thomas must have, because Thomas really did give all of himself to everyone all the time. He was always there for everybody, but it seems like no one must have been there for him, and I think about that a lot. I really wish that I could have gone and said something, did something, I don't know, but there must have been something that could have been done, because he did so much for everybody else. And that's the biggest thing that he's impacted me with in my life, is just the way I look at all of my relationships.
The impact that Thomas had on me was huge. He was a huge friend of mine. He made me the person I am today. As a young kid, you know, I'm looking up to other people, and I'm learning my way of who I'm going to be as growing up, who I'm going to be as a kid, how I'm going to act when I get older. A lot of who I am today is because of what I was as a kid and who led me along the way of who I am today. And I believe I have a lot of the same characteristics that Thomas had. He was strong. He was committed to things that he did. He was in the military. He was extremely committed to being in the military. He was committed to all the sports he played, football, baseball. I looked up to him those ways. and he took everything really seriously on the field. And I looked up to that. I loved the way he played. I loved the way he went about his things, not just on the field, but off the field. He also was great in the classroom. The kid was smart. He knew what he was doing. He had a vision, and he everything he did, he wanted to be the best at it, or he wanted to be his best self of it. So looking up to him, he was always younger than me, but that never was a factor to me. I always had that, love for him as a person, and I admired everything about him.
So in addition to being the room mother, I was also a substitute teacher. And then when Thomas moved out of Charlestown, when I would sub in a school that he was in, I was always look for him. And I unfortunately never got to see him, but I was always looking for him because, again, his smile always stuck with me, and I just took a liking to him, and I always missed him after he left. And that was pre-phones for little kids, so they didn't really keep in touch like, you can easily do now. But I always looked for him wherever I was. And I remember the day I found out, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw that Northeast had posted that they were going to have counselors on hand, and I had texted Mace, and I was like, Mace, do you know what happened? And like 10 minutes later, he texted me back and he said, Mom, it was Thomas. Didn't even know I hadn't seen him since they were in 5th grade, and now they were going into junior year. It just hit you, because like I said, we were excited we were going to see him again and be back in his life, and he was always so smiley and bubbly. You never would have thought, it would have been him. So.
Thomas was so young. The traveling he got to do, he was so excited about, and it was, like I said, the stories would be phenomenal about the places he saw and the things he got to do, and it made you excited and made you want to go out and see things and do things and travel. So that's probably like one of the impacts he had on me, was just his excitement, and his storytelling was infectious to make you want to do what he did.
Suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the United States. In 2022, there were over 49,000 people who died by suicide in this country. There were an estimated 1.6 million attempts. In Maryland, it's the 16th leading cause of death, and the 3rd leading cause of death for those aged 10 to 24 and 25 to 34. And 78% of our communities do not have enough resources, enough mental health providers to meet the need in 2023. One thing to be aware of is that there are a lot of myths about suicide. A lot of people feel that if you ask someone if they're thinking of suicide, that somehow that plants the idea in their head. It's exactly the opposite. Talking about it may help them reduce their feelings of isolation and disconnection. People who talk about suicide don't do it is another myth, whereas 8 out of 10 people tell someone before making an attempt. Another myth is that nothing can be done once somebody has decided to take their own life, but the truth is that people considering suicide don't necessarily want to die. They just want to end their pain. Suicide only happens to certain people is a belief we might have. But some people may be at higher risk, but the truth is we're all at risk for suicide. There are certain things that may put people at higher risk of suicide. If there are health conditions, if they have mental health conditions that aren't being addressed, if they're in significant pain for a long period of time, or if they have a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, that might increase their risk. There are also environmental factors that may increase risk. If somebody has access to lethal means to take their own life, if they're experiencing prolonged stress with no relief, or if they've had a stressful life event or several stressful life events, that may increase their risks. And if they've been exposed to suicide of a friend or a family member, their risk will be increased. Historical risk factors include previous attempts, family history of suicide, or a history of childhood abuse, neglect, or trauma. All of these things can raise the risk level for someone to die by suicide. So you may notice some warning signs that could tell you that someone might be thinking about suicide or might be at risk of imminent suicide. You'll see this in the things that they say. They may talk about killing themselves. They may say they're hopeless. They may say they have no reason to live. They may talk about being a burden to friends or family, or that they're feeling trapped, or that they're experiencing unbearable pain. You'll also see it in what they do. They may increase their substance use, alcohol or drugs. You may find that they've been searching for ways to die on the internet. They may be withdrawing from things that they used to love doing, and they may be isolating from friends and family. They might be sleeping a lot more, or they might be sleeping not at all. They might visit or call others to say goodbye, and they might be giving away their things. They may also exhibit aggression or fatigue. None of these things in and of themselves says they're going to take their life, but they're all things you should be noticing. You might also see changes in their mood. So you may notice depression or anxiety, a loss of interest in things that they used to enjoy. They may be irritable or expressing shame or agitation, or you may, on the other end of things, see relief or a sudden improvement in their mood. Boys and girls, or men and women, may look different if they're feeling depressed or if they're suicidal. Girls may seem to be able to show their feelings, may look sad, may seem upset, but boys are more likely to externalize their feelings and show it as risky behavior, anger, impulsivity, or violent acts even. They may be irritable and they might lash out, and they are far less likely to seek help because they may associate sadness with weakness. Mostly you want to look for, is somebody different than they were before? Has something changed? Are they behaving differently? Whether they're a girl or a boy, something different and something in your gut tells you that something's going on. Pay attention and ask the questions. So while there are increased risk factors, there are also protective factors. So to help someone be at lowered risk for suicide, we want to make sure that they have access to mental health care, that they're feeling connected, that they're learning good problem solving and coping mechanisms to deal with things that come at them in life, and that we limit their access to lethal means. You should ask directly if they're thinking about suicide, thinking about killing themselves, or thinking about harming themselves. Don't use softer terms, be very direct. Then listen to what they say. Take what they say seriously. Don't minimize it, and let them know that their life matters to you. Try to connect them to 988 or other mental health supports, and don't leave them alone. If they refuse help, call 988 or 911 yourself if you feel that they're in immediate danger, and then find someone for you to talk to make sure that you're doing okay.
When Mom speaks about your death, she refers to what most people have said to her. I never thought it would be him, and I didn't either. I didn't know you were struggling, and I carry a lot of guilt not knowing, and I often think if there was anything I could have done like most of us do. If you had asked me July 27th, 2019, what I thought it would be like to lose a sibling to suicide, I would have no clue where to begin to even answer that question. If you asked me that same question July 28th, 2019, I would tell you this. It's harrowing, a tragedy, the truest devastation. It's traumatic, it's lonely, and it's heartbreaking. And some days you feel all of those feelings in the same day, let alone the same hour. Not only will you never be here again, but you chose to leave us, and although I have forgiven you, I will never forget.
When reflecting on Thomas's life, a scene from the movie Steel Magnolias came to mind. It's after Sally Field's character loses her daughter, and at the service she says, I realize as a woman how lucky I am. I was there when that wonderful creature drifted into my life, and I was there when she drifted out. Granted, Sally Field's character was at her daughter's bedside when she passed away. I, however, was the one to find Thomas that Sunday morning, and I can honestly say it was a gift to be the one to find him. I heard him take his first breaths when he was born, and I was the first to see him after he had taken his last. I don't share a lot about the details of that particular moment, but what I will share is that when looking back, the scene was very peaceful. Words will never clearly articulate that moment, and I'm thankful that I had it. Don't get me wrong, the loss of Thomas is heartbreaking and life-changing. Most days it still feels surreal. The fact that this is being recorded for a documentary for his 5-year anniversary just is mind-blowing to me. Part of me feels like I'm still living in 2019.
The impact that his death had on me is like, it made me look at everything differently. Like before that, I looked at mental health like, you're obviously gonna tell if somebody's got something wrong with them. Like they're either super sad all the time or they're gonna be crazy, talking to themselves, whatever. Thomas did absolutely none of that. He was always popular. He's always had a smile on his face. Looking at it, you would never been able to tell. And so that's the biggest impact it's had on me, is like, I understand more of what mental health actually is, and that it's more than just somebody being crazy or sad. You're not always going to be able to tell. But it helped me to realize that, and realize that it's something actually you got to like keep in mind when you're talking to people. Like, you don't really know what else somebody else is going through. And I never thought I'd be a part of something like the Live for Thomas organization. Like she's getting things started now, so I haven't done too much with her, but I never thought I'd be at anything related to any kind of organization, like going to events, whatever it may be. But like the biggest thing it had on me is it had changed how I looked at mental health and how people are affected by things that are going on in their life.
Thomas's death truly broke me. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my whole entire life. I went through the self-blame, the not understanding why he didn't come to me, why I didn't know how bad it truly was. I knew he was struggling with depression and some things like that, but I never expected this would be the outcome to it. There's not a day that goes by that I don't miss Thomas. I was so blessed to have known him and to being able to call him my friend.
Thomas's death had a huge impact on me. It was the first major death I'd ever experienced in my life. I had a few uncles and aunts pass before, but Thomas's death was the most major one I've ever experienced. It definitely opened my eyes to mental health and looking out for people. And you know, I thank Thomas all the time, because I actually had to use what I learned from him to save my little brother. And my little brother was about to do the exact same, and you know, from what I learned from Thomas's passing, that impact helped me to be there for my brother and be there for friends that I met in college and high school. And it just gave me the opportunity to pay back what I wasn't able to pay back for when he passed. So his death had a very large impact on me and my family.
His death to me was really heartbreaking, because you know, we were supposed to reconnect and everything with the school, and it was really exciting to me, because you know, it was like I was such good friends with him for those 2 years, and then he went away, and you know, phones really weren't the best, so it just wasn't easy to stay in contact with each other. And you know, he went to different stuff and was into sports, and then I didn't really do sports, so I was into racing, and so I never really got to see him or anything. So it was really going to be good to reconnect with him. And then I found out I was laying in my bed the one night, and ended up, my friend texted me who it was, because he also went to the same elementary school. And yeah, I really didn't think it was going to affect me, but I put my phone down and just started crying. I really couldn't stop it. It hurt so bad to know that he was gone. And you know, it really made me just know that, you know, you never know what somebody's going through. And even though you haven't talked to him and who knows how long, that it is never too late to just text somebody and be like, hey man, I know it's been a while, how you been? And with all that, I felt the need that I had to do something in that, and we made it very apparent, and we put it all over my race car to have the suicide awareness. And we put his name on the car and everything. And I remember right after all that happened, and we just put it on the car in the first race out, and it's probably the best race I ever drove, because I needed to make sure that I said that in victory lane, that everything was for him. And every single time it got around either his death or his birthday, I somehow won the race and was able to just, you know, relive him and my racing. And that was like my favorite thing about it. So it really sucked that he was gone so soon and never got to even see any of that cool stuff, because he would have loved all that, especially with knowing he was in the cars. So it really sucked.
Thomas's death made me realize how easy it is for somebody to be here 1 minute and gone the next because of suicide. I didn't think that I would experience that loss because of it until Thomas. And I didn't realize that it would be the kid that was happy on the outside, had friends and was considered popular, was on the football team, everybody liked him. And it makes me look into other people's feelings more and appreciate the people that I have around me.
Honestly, it was probably, and still is, one of the hardest things I've had to go through. It really put into perspective how important it is to check on the people around you that you really love and care about, no matter how well you think that they are mentally, all of it. It does not matter. You need to check in on them, and if there is somebody out there you really care about, check in on them, be with them, ask if they need help, even if they don't seem like they do, because it was the last person I would have thought.
When I first heard the news that Thomas passed, it was one of the worst days of my life. I was at the beach and everything was ruined from that moment on for the rest of the weeks to come. High school was then ruined after that for me. College was an escape. It was nice to get away from home, and now coming back, it's like a reminder of him sometimes, and it's very heartbreaking and upsetting, and it's not something that I love to do anymore like I once did, so. I'm very glad that the Live for Thomas Foundation came out of this, though, because I know there's a lot of other younger individuals who suffer from this, and they need to know that there's a place for them to go and talk to, and that there are millions of people who care about them.
It makes you want to hold your loved ones a little tighter, make you realize little things aren't as big as you may have thought. You don't always see the struggles that people have, so it makes you look at things in a different perspective and have a different understanding for people.
And to miss what he brought to us, you know, here one day, gone the next. I just didn't feel like I knew he was struggling like that. I didn't, and it hurts.
Yeah, that's one thing you wish you could change, is if you knew, like maybe you could have helped, but yeah, that's it.
You know, devastating to get that call. Oh my God.
What was so hard for me, or so impactful, was the stereotypes that we have about mental health and depression and what that looks like. They don't line up with the Thomas that I knew. It made me realize how many Thomases are walking down the halls of our schools and excelling and doing great, and really the whole time they're struggling and suffering in silence.
Thomas's impact meant a lot to me. Because what happened changed my perspective on everything. It changed my perspective on mental health. I was a teenage kid, just like Thomas, and at that point in my life, nobody really severely struggled with mental health around me until Thomas. And although I maybe thought that I understood what struggling with mental health was, his death put it in a different perspective. You know, all of a sudden, it's reality. You know, I now today look at people as if everybody's struggling with something, because it's true, everybody is struggling with something.
I've always been connected to teenagers. I work in the high school. I have a lot of them that confide in me, so I wanted to be part of the solution and figure out how I can help. So when Amy started the foundation, I immediately wanted to be part, and I do what I can to be part of that and to help any kids that need any help. And I have a bunch of the high school that come to me when they're in need and talk to me, and I always like to surround myself with people that need help, especially teenagers that don't necessarily get that help from other people in their life. So I carry that with me every day, and my goal is to help others make it through it and not think that that's their only option.
I try to do my best now to make sure that any of my male friends know that they can come and talk, and it's okay to talk. And I want to try to make sure that, you know, in honor of Thomas and those struggles that he went through silently, I try to make sure that I don't go through anything silently myself. I try to talk to people now, which is something that I never did before, and I try to make sure that I am there as well for all my friends, and I try not to let them down the same way that I let Thomas down. You know, we all can sit here and say we could have done something, that, you know, maybe we could have, you know, made things better for him, but can't live on that, can't live in the past. So all we can really do now is just look forward and think that we can learn and try to just be better people and honor his memory and be as selfless and as giving as he was.
His death, you know, it just really showed that it can be anyone. You know, he was the last person you would think, because he just seemed so strong and so mature and so just like put together, that it seemed impossible, you know what I mean? And for it to be him, it just really shows that, you know, life is valuable. Like, don't take it for granted. People go through anything, it doesn't matter who you are. And to be able to just be vulnerable in some situations sometimes and be able to talk about it, it really does help, you know? And it's a shame he wasn't able to, you know, figure that out. And I think he just wanted to be so strong that he just wasn't able to do that.
For me, the impact that Thomas's death had on me personally was very eye-opening. And it was very, I'd say, relatable, just in the fact that and I remember this from whenever I was a student athlete, and even still as an adult, right? As men, boys, we're taught to be stoic, always be tough, right? Always just kind of hide our emotions, right? We're taught men don't show their emotions. For me, I want to do everything that I can in order to take the experience and kind of turn it so that way to help as many young boys who may be in that type of situation as possible. And to just show them and teach them that, look, high school kids have a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of pressure from outside, right? Their peers, their family situations, money situations, whatever it might be, on top of what we ask them to do in school and in sports. And just for kids to understand, my biggest takeaway was for kids to understand that, look, I'm here for you, right? I don't always have the answers, and I'm not ever gonna act like I have all the answers. But at the end of the day, I want the guys and the kids to feel comfortable that, hey, you can come to me, and if I can help you right then and there, I absolutely will. But if I can't help you right then and there, I'm going to do and get in contact with anybody I can so that way we can help you. Because what you're feeling, right? I've felt those moments. I know plenty of people have felt those moments where you feel like there's no way out. Even as an adult, I feel those moments at times. But there is always a way out, right? And there is always something we can do. Even though we don't think there is at the time, there's always something that you can do. And there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And I just want to really help as many young kids realize that.
Thomas's death destroyed me. I had experienced personal, suicide losses on a couple throughout my life. One when I was a teenager, one when I was a child. They were family members, but I wasn't close to them. So when I found out about Thomas, his death was the first time that a suicide actually just destroyed me. And I remember collapsing on the deck because it was at my mom's house. When I got the phone call from our mutual friend, Shay, she called me to tell me that what had happened, and every bit of me just couldn't believe it, and I lost it. And I thought back to the times that he was an amazing person, and I couldn't believe it was him. And I remember recently seeing that he had just gotten a career that he always wanted. He was gonna get it. He was gonna go and be in the military, and he was getting the graduated year early. And he was going to, he was gonna be in the military like he always wanted. He had been a soldier for Halloween many times when he was a child, and it was finally happening for him, and I had just been days before that I saw it, and I couldn't believe that that's where we were at. His death truly influenced the way I look at my life. I had lost my dad a few years before that, and that impacted me. But seeing a child go and seeing the way knowing that there was a struggle there, I made sure that I had been looking at my own mental health beforehand, and my family knew about it. And I had been very open with my family. I talked very honestly, but he made me realize that I needed to pick a new narrative with my children, because I didn't want that to happen for them. So, I live my life differently because of him. I teach my children differently because of them. And I truly want to live my life to the fullest because of him.
So I'm a mental health professional in part because I've had a lot of loss to suicide throughout my life. Family members, and in 6th grade, lost the first of 4 friends in my class of just 30 people. What we didn't get is what people are getting now because of Amy and the Live for Thomas Foundation. It's been amazing to watch people come together to support each other and to bring light to this kind of darkness. When you don't get support, it lingers. I'm 40 years out from the loss of my friend, and I still think of him all the time because we weren't given the support that people are now getting because we're bringing this to the forefront. The Live for Thomas Foundation does amazing things in Cecil County, and I think they're making a real difference in the lives of people, both the people who knew Thomas and who are missing him, and people who didn't know Thomas but know him now because they see all of the work that they're doing around his death. So while we don't want to lose anybody to suicide, at the end of the day, this loss has created something of a movement in the area, and I think a lot of people's lives will be saved as a result.
Almost immediately following Thomas's death, we knew that his death would not be in vain and that something good would come from it, that there would be beauty from ashes. Over the past 5 years, the Live for Thomas Foundation has donated a bench to Northeast High School, which is the school Thomas attended. The bench is in the school's courtyard. It has pictures of Thomas and the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline information on it so that students can discreetly access the information if needed. Every September, we put up a billboard, which is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and it's also Thomas's birth month. These billboards are put up in memory of Thomas and to raise awareness. We've implemented mental health awareness talks with local high school athletes. These talks started following a conversation with one of Thomas's coaches, who was also one of his teachers. Discussion took place regarding ways we could spread awareness to the adolescent population and to encourage honest conversations around mental illness and mental health challenges. These talks include guest speakers with lived experience related to mental illness and other mental health challenges, a clinician to teach coping skills, representatives from local resources, and when schedules align, a trip to Sean's house. Sean's house is in Newark, Delaware, and is a 24/7 peer support program. It is a safe space designed to help members of their community improve their health and well-being and connect with their peers who have experienced similar challenges in a safe and confidential environment. The specifics of the talks are dependent upon the sport, their practice and game schedule, and these talks have varied from taking place once a week with the team to 3 times during the season to just once during the season. These talks are one of the favorite things that we do. When a safe space is provided for teens to talk, they will. They're usually engaged with the different speakers, they ask questions, and in some cases, they share their own experiences. More than once, we've run into athletes who have asked us if we're going to do the talks again for their upcoming season. Although we currently do these talks with high school athletes, we're always willing to provide these talks to other organizations. We were also part of the team to testify at the Senate hearing in support of Senate Bill 165, which mandates that public schools and public institutions of higher education provide mental health training to their coaches. This bill was passed and became effective July 1st of this year. We played a vital role in the power of expression being brought to the 5 high schools here in Cecil County. Following positive feedback from our first year with Power of Expression, we now provide it to all incoming freshman classes annually. The Live for Thomas Foundation also implemented the first Hope Squad in Northeast High School, which was also the first Hope Squad in the state of Maryland. We're in the process of working towards implementing Hope Squads in all of Cecil County schools. The Live for Thomas Foundation also initiated the What's Your Strong campaign. This campaign is a social media and billboard campaign which is designed to change the narrative that one is weak if they show emotion or ask for help. This campaign is designed to highlight that there is strength in asking for help. The campaign consists of a variety of professions which may include business owners, hairstylists, mayor, we have veterans involved in it, other family members, and many of these participants are local community members. The Live for Thomas Foundation has also participated in various community outreach events, including a suicide awareness night at a football game, speaking engagements, including being guest on different podcasts, and facilitate youth mental health first aid training. Last year, we partnered with Be My Voice, which is a local nonprofit focused on suicide postvention. We recognize that postvention is also prevention. So when Be My Voice and Live for Thomas began to collaborate, we recognized the importance of the partnership in being able to provide wraparound services. We are currently in the final stages leading up to the opening of Den 22, which is modeled after Sean's house. We anticipate the doors opening in August of this year.
My name is Danielle Speck-Hafner, and I'm the program manager for Den 22. Den 22 is offered to the community. Our target population is ages 14 to 24. We offer a safe space for visitors to come and decompress and receive mental health and peer support, and also crisis intervention. Some reason that visitors may stop by Den 22 is they may be feeling some emotional distress. This could be due to failing a recent test, not performing well in a sporting event, peer conflicts, or having issues with their family unit. Den 22 also can provide support if you're experiencing issues with self-harm or suicidal ideations. Den 22 offers the ability to learn healthy coping strategies, such as our Calming Corner, where you're able to decompress, read a book, listen to music, and just take some time for yourself. We also offer an art station. That's where you're able to express yourself with creativity. And then a lounge area where you can come and hang out and possibly play board games or have a conversation with some things that may be on your mind. Den 22 strives to offer a safe space where adolescents and young adults can come and obtain free mental health and peer support. You are not alone.
We have accomplished a lot in the past 5 years, especially with COVID happening during that time frame. We are proud of what we have done, and we know it's still only the beginning of what God has planned for us. Be sure to follow us on social media and check out our website so that you can stay up to date with what's taking place.
I will never forget to check in on the people closest to me. I will never forget that those that seem the happiest might actually be the saddest. I will never forget that you never know what someone else could be going through, and I will never forget those things because of you. I wish you were still here to steal my candles out of my room. I wish you were still here to take an hour-long shower and leave me no hot water. I wish you were here to tell me all about your political views. I wish you were here to not share any of your food with me. I just wish that my brother was here. I hope I make you proud. Until I see you again. Love always, Michaela.
I speak of my faith often in the role that it has played in my grief process and healing. I've continuously said, I don't understand God's plan, but I will trust it, and I've continued to stand on that. It doesn't mean that I don't have bad days and that it doesn't hurt. It just means that I don't have to carry that hurt alone. I also know that I'm going to see Thomas again. I found him on a Sunday morning, that Sunday night, kind of after all the chaos, subsided, and really I just passed out from being exhausted. that I had a dream about him. And in the dream, it was like doors open, almost kind of like, you know, a Walmart or something, like the sliding doors. And he's standing there in his gray tank top and red shorts, just standing there smiling at me like he's waiting for me. So I'm definitely looking forward to the day that I get to see him again. However, I know this moment in time that like I still have a purpose. And the purpose is beyond the Live for Thomas Foundation. Yes, I love what we do. I would love to have my son back. But more so, my purpose is my daughter and my grandsons. I'm going to be present for them while honoring Thomas by living a life that I love and living for him.
you.